In an interview, you're likely to get asked why you left your last job. Well, stick around because in this video, I'm going to teach you exactly how to answer that question. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you how to answer the interview question, why did you leave your last job? A little bit about me. I'm a corporate recruiter with over 20 years of experience interviewing and hiring thousands of people into some of the world's most well-known and well-respected companies. So I do know a thing or two about interviewing and how to answer the interview questions in a way that's going to satisfy the hiring manager's expectations. So in the spirit of interview prep, I'm going to share with you how to answer the question, why did you leave your last job? But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more videos just like this one, directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any future posts. All right, so without further ado, let's get into how to answer the question, why did you leave your last job? Now, like I said before, if you're in an active job search and you're interviewing, you're likely going to get asked why you left your last jobs. And if you're somebody that has had a lot of jobs in a relatively short amount of time, that can be considered job hopping. Now, I made another video about that, so if you think you might be in this situation, I highly encourage you to check that one out. But if you have a potentially job hopping resume, you would definitely be expected to justify why you have left some of those previous positions, so pay close attention to this video. Now, before we answer the question, I think it's worth breaking down what exactly the hiring manager is looking for when they ask you this question, because it's not some arbitrary question that they're just asking just to make chit chat. There's actually a reason for each question that the interviewer is asking you, and they're assessing you based on certain competencies. And this question is no different. First and most obvious reason why they'd want to know why you left your last job is to make sure that you weren't terminated for cause, for performance, for dishonesty, or for some other low character reason. And they also want to make sure that the reason why you left your last job is satisfied. In other words, it's not following you along, you're not running away from an issue, and that you've handled it in a mature manner. So essentially, the hiring manager wants to de-risk their hire of you in their current company by ensuring that you've achieved the personal growth that you were seeking when you left your previous job. Now, there's a lot of valid reasons why you may have left your last employer. And in fact, if you watch my channel on any level, you know that I talk a lot about poor quality employers and reasons why we should be leaving our current employment. However, we want to make sure that we answer this question very strategically so that we don't give the interviewer any ammunition to hold against us, because answering the question the wrong way could give the interviewer a reason to start digging further into your background in a way that's not productive for you. Ultimately, as the interviewee, we want to dictate the tone of the interview itself, and that's where the strategy comes in. So we want to make sure our answer is positive no matter the reason why we left our last employer. And almost every negative situation can be turned into a positive with a little bit of practice and some strategy. So make sure that you practice this question. We don't want to go into the interview winging it. Okay, so suppose that you left your last employer because of a toxic workplace, a toxic boss, or a toxic coworker. Try framing it like this. While you learned a lot in a very challenging work culture, you decided it was time to broaden your experience and apply your skills in a world-class company such as the company you're interviewing for. An astute interviewer is going to be able to read between the lines and know that you probably came from a toxic work culture, but you're not necessarily throwing them under the bus. And that's the most important thing, is we don't want to be coming across as talking negative about our previous situation. We want to show that we learned from it and imply that it was maybe a bad situation without saying so. Now, what about a situation where you were bored at work? You certainly don't want to tell them that you were very bored in your job, because that's just going to open up a whole can of worms. We don't want the employer thinking that you don't show initiative and don't improve your situation. So frame it like this. While you're appreciative of your time in XYZ company or XYZ role, you feel that you're ready for a greater challenge and a chance to demonstrate your experience in a more enriched role. And that way you're not giving the employer any reason to doubt your self-motivation or your willingness to go above and beyond. Now, in a situation where you simply outgrew the role and you were ready for more challenge, kind of the same thing. Maybe you achieved a certain certification, a skill set, or maybe a technology stack that they just weren't working with. And that's certainly a valid reason for looking for new employment. In that case, just be honest, but again, keep it positive about the previous company and the experience that you gained, but what you're looking forward to in the future. Or in the case where you weren't actively looking, but a recruiter contacted you, you could say something to the effect of, Well, I wasn't currently looking for a new opportunity. Your recruiter reached out to me, or maybe it was a colleague that reached out to you, and made you aware of this position that seems like an ideal fit for your skill set. And therefore you're excited to learn more about the possibility of whether or not this is a good fit for your professional development. And this one's great because it doesn't question your motivation. And if you are thinking about leaving your current job and a recruiter reaches out to you, it's actually a great way to avoid the unpleasantries of your current situation altogether. In the circumstance where you were laid off, I would keep it very short and sweet and just say something to the effect of, while I was very satisfied with the kind of work that I was doing, the company that I was working for fortunately went through a rough patch and my position was one of many that was caught in a layoff. But I'm very excited about the opportunity at hand, and I feel like my skill set would be a great fit for this position. Here's some other valid reasons why you may have left your last employer. And in these cases, I would probably just be pretty honest and blunt about them. Is if you had a long commute that wasn't reasonable anymore and you wanted to find something shorter, if you were in a situation where you were looking for remote only work based on the current climate that we're in, or maybe you were in a situation where there was no upward mobility and you're really looking for an opportunity to expand your skill set and move into a different line of work. But if you're in a situation where you were fired, less is more. And I'm going to make a separate video breaking down how to answer this question if you're in that situation. But in this case, I would not recommend that you come out and say that you were fired directly. Rather say something like this, that you were separated from your role and it has given you clarity in your job search and you are excited about where your career is headed now. But if they continue to push you on if you were terminated or not, just say that your employment was terminated and that you learned a lot from the experience, and keep it short and sweet. Again, less is more here. So just as a summary, we want to stay positive and short and sweet. Those are the two major things to keep in mind. And again, we want to make sure that we practice our answers before we go into the interview. You do not want to wing this one, because answering this question incorrectly, especially early in your interview, could slant the interview in a negative way, and you don't want to be on the defensive the rest of the interview, because that is not a way to win. All right, so hopefully this helps give you some clarity on how you should answer the question of why you left your last job. If you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure how to get through the interviewing process, though, that is something that I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. It is loaded with tips and tricks, all from an insider's perspective. I offer some private one-on-one coaching. If you need some more direct help, you can reach me through my website for that. And I also offer my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It's designed to teach you exactly how to write a resume that's going to give you the best chance of getting noticed by that recruiter, ultimately to land the first round interview. Once you land that first round interview, it's up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the interviewing process. And that's where the ultimate job seeker bootcamp comes in. It's loaded with tips and tricks and takes you through each step of the interviewing process, gives you all of the tools necessary to be successful and ace each round, ultimately to land your dream job. So if you're struggling, highly encourage you to check it out. Hey, appreciate you watching. Happy interviewing. Make sure that you practice this question, and we will see you on the next one.